Can bankruptcy help student loans? And most people don't realize that there's a pathway to get your bankruptcies reduced or completely discharged through the bankruptcy process. Here with Jay Fleishman, a well-known student loan lawyer. Jay, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks. The information that people get is that bankruptcy isn't going to help their student loans. And on the one hand, that is correct in as much as bankruptcy will not automatically discharge your student loans, as opposed to your credit card bills, your personal loans, your overdrafts, your arrears. Those are automatically resolved in bankruptcy. However, when you're dealing with student loans, you're required to take a couple of extra steps. You're required to ultimately prove to the court that leaving bankruptcy, owing those student loans, is going to cause what is termed an undue hardship.
Mhm.
You're essentially required to provide to the court proof that not only is your current financial situation not good enough to allow you to sustain a minimal standard of living for yourself and your dependents, but also that you don't have the ability to both keep a roof over your head and food on your plate and continue to make those student loan payments, not only currently, but into the future. Your financial situation is unlikely to change through no fault of your own.
Mm.
In addition, you've got to prove that you've acted in good faith with respect to your student loans up until the bankruptcy. But for the most part, that's an easier portion to prove. But you need to take that extra step of being able to prove to the court that that undue hardship exists. And because that discharge is not automatic, most people walk away from the process thinking, well, there's nothing that can be done about my student loans. But beyond the notion of discharging your student loans, I find for a lot of my clients that bankruptcy is incredibly helpful because in the bankruptcy process itself, you're able to jettison so many of your other financial obligations that for a lot of people, merely going through the bankruptcy process is going to free up enough money for them to be able to make those student loan payments. So even if your student loans are not going to be discharged in bankruptcy, and even if you're not going to take that step of filing what's called an adversary proceeding, a separate lawsuit in the bankruptcy court, and going through those hoops to prove undue hardship, a lot of people find that just the bankruptcy is going to help them tremendously.
So Jay, I got a question for you. You do bankruptcies and student loan work in
Yes,
California and New York, right? You
correct.
you see this all
For
the time.
for now, those are the only two states
Okay.
where I represent people in bankruptcy
And
cases. Yeah.
so let's just pretend you had 100 clients come in that file bankruptcy with you with student loans. What percentage of them, of the 100, have an actual case to get their student loans completely discharged or say substantially reduced? Like, how often is this happening in practicality?
In practicality, there is a meaningful subset of of bankruptcy clients that are also student loan borrowers that will benefit from filing for bankruptcy. Now, if we take that next step of saying not only will filing for bankruptcy help them with their student loans, but also a discharge is possible,
Mhm.
then we come to the question of what kind of loan are we dealing with, and what are we really looking for? Are
Mhm.
we going into the process hoping or seeking a full discharge of those student loans? Or are we going into the process as a means of bringing somebody to the table to negotiate
Yeah.
a better set of repayment options for that student loan? And that's primarily going to come up in the universe of the private student loans,
Okay.
because within the bankruptcy court, filing a discharge case for private student loans and getting a meaningful
Mhm.
resolution is eminently possible. So that happens all the time.
Which and a lot of people don't even realize that. Like, I hear that over and over, how confusing that is. This is
Yeah.
private and public
Yes.
student loans. Yeah.
Yes. when we're talking about your federal student loans, the opportunity for discharge has become more streamlined
Mhm.
under guidelines that have been put down from the Department of Justice since late 2022. But for federal student loans, even if you have a not so great case for discharge,
Mhm.
there are still so many other options outside of bankruptcy
Yeah.
that allow you to bring those payments down, qualify for longer term forgiveness that may suit you better.
So,
Um,
so going back to my question, 100 people with student loans, when in terms of meaningful changes, or is it 50 out of 100, 60 out of 100? Like, what's that subset?
I would say somewhere along the lines of between 20 and 30%
Okay.
of student loan borrowers who enter bankruptcy can get some benefit
Okay.
from the bankruptcy process
Okay.
in one form or another.
So 20 to 30% of the people watching this video right now have the chance to substantially change their landscape on student loans because of bankruptcy. And now, Jay, tell me why there are attorneys out there that don't even understand this. I mean, you'd think they're lawyers, they're licensed, they're all licensed by their local bar, and certain attorneys still think that it's not possible.
Sure. I think that one of the major reasons is because there is no bright line when it comes to student loans. When you're dealing with bankruptcy and say credit card debt,
Hmm.
there's a it's a yes or no, right? Is the bankruptcy gonna discharge this credit card debt? It's a yes or no. Even when you're dealing with past due personal income tax obligations, there's a certain bright line test. When you're dealing with student loans, you've got a number of considerations even before you get to the question of undue hardship.
Got
You've
it.
got to determine, is this actually a student loan for the purposes of the bankruptcy code, which is very different than
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
a student loan out in the wild. So
Yeah.
you've got you've got those questions to ask, and it's highly technical, it's highly complex, and it is an ever evolving portion of the bankruptcy laws. So I think that a lot of bankruptcy practitioners look at even that initial inquiry and they recognize the fact that because they can't give certainty to their
Yeah.
clients, they they just walk away from it.
Yeah, because
They
bankruptcy attorneys, they're used to absolutely, here you go, we'll get this off. Makes
Sure.
sense.
Yeah,
Jay Fleisch, oh,
it's really difficult when you've got a practice area that allows you to sit in front of your client and give them certainty and clarity at the time of the initial consultation.
yeah.
It's really difficult to change gears and to admit, well, this is a maybe. Let's see the strength of the case. It's a difficult position for most bankruptcy lawyers to be in just because it's not something that they're used to doing.
Great. Jay Fleischman, moneywiselaw.com. Thank you, Jay.
Thank you.
Bankruptcy explain.